My testicular shrinkage has been 0. Most people can resume normal testosterone production after the cessation of anabolic androgenic steroids.
Why is it always guys who have never used gear who are always telling guys who do use gear how it works? Coach Greg, and in today's video, Mike Isreatel thinks it's easy, that's right, easy to come off steroids. He's being interviewed by none other than Peter Attia, and he asked the question, how hard is it to come off? Dr. Mike says it's easier than you think. About 90% of the people, no problem. Now the other 10%, well, that could be a nightmare. But is it really 90%? Peter Attia says it can't be that high. I mean, after all, this man, he does a lot of research. But who better to answer this question than Coach Greg? I have tremendous experience in going on and coming off, as well as I've coached hundreds, if not thousands, of competitors doing the exact same thing. I'm going to be telling you what I think, as well as what the research says. Many of you probably thinking, well, Dr. Mike has just as much experience as you. After all, does he not admit that he's been on steroids for 13 years? Wouldn't he know whether it's hard or easy for him to come off? The answer is no. How could he know?
Most people can resume normal testosterone production after the cessation of anabolic androgenic steroids, but not all. Maybe like 90-10. You don't want to be that 10.
I can't imagine it's 90-10 though, Mike. I cannot imagine that 90% of people that use anabolic steroids for more than 2 years would be able to
I may be incorrect about
testosterone
that.
production.
I would look into it. I think that most of the stuff you hear about how the comeback is difficult is from people for whom the comeback is difficult. And having been in the bodybuilding powerlifting space for a long time, most people come off and they're just normal after.
What Mike is trying to explain is that we always hear the horror stories. The guy that went on steroids and now he can't get his testosterone levels back and he has to be on HRT for life. I'm that guy. Do I sound like I'm a rare specimen that most people are not like me? And if you look at several Mr. Olympia champions, former champions, do most of those guys go off? Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler, Phil Heath, and so on. How many of those guys they go off and they go back to their regular lives? Mike says he has a lot of experience and so he's coached people. And so why wouldn't he know more than Coach Greg? Well, I'll tell you why. Mike has never come off.
How many weeks a year are you completely off any anabolic agent?
0.
If Mike has never, ever in his life, not one time been off of steroids, then how does he have experience in knowing what it's like? Why is it always guys who have never used gear who are always telling guys who do use gear how it works? The ego these clowns have that think they know more about something they have no experience with than guys with years of experience with it. Peter Attia is not just some guy. Bro, this is an expert. He studies this all the time, and although he's never personally experienced using steroids, I certainly think he can speak to the difficulty in coming off. When I go and see my endocrinologist, of which I did, and he prescribed me testosterone, that endocrinologist had never used steroids. But does that mean they don't understand the difficulties of coming off? In my case, I had been off a number of times. I would cycle on and cycle off. And what does that mean? Well, for a period of perhaps 12 weeks, I would be taking performance-enhancing drugs. But for the next 12 weeks, I would stop. I was doing a PCT and I was literally coming off, experiencing what it's like to not feel superhuman, to have very low testosterone levels, to lose the majority of the gains that I'd made while using steroids, and to have erectile difficulties. Trust me, when your testosterone levels are through the roof and suddenly they're in the toilet, how hard do you think it is to get harder than last time? Guys, if you are having difficulties, you can, of course, pick a bottle of Harder Than Last Time. Code Greg, 15% off. But Mike himself, how would he know? Now, listen, he's well-read, he's well-versed, he understands the literature, but he's never gone off. How does he know what it's like to truly be off? And so if Mike had said, you know what, I cycle on and cycle off, and every time I cycled off, I came back no problem. No erectile difficulties, no loss in strength, no problems whatsoever. I would then say, well, he has a point. But has he ever come off?
At this point, you're going to need to be on testosterone the rest of your life, I assume.
I don't have to be. My testicular shrinkage has been 0. My spermatogenesis is seemingly 0.
How many weeks a year are you completely off any anabolic agent?
0.
And how many years has that been?
13.
I find it hard to believe you would continue to make testosterone.
It's hugely genetically variable. And in addition to that, even if I'm not making any now, within several weeks, my testosterone production would likely resume.
And so I thought after he'd said he hadn't been off in 13 years, I thought Pierre was going to say, hey, that's a mic drop, Mike. I just mic'd your Isreatel.
What did he say?
But he says, are you sure? Are you certain of this? And Mike responds with, yeah, in a couple of weeks, my spermatogenesis should begin to resume and I'll start producing testosterone. I don't think I'll need to be on HRT. Why does Mike, who's abused steroids for 13 years, think that he'll have no problems when Coach Greg needs to be on HRT prescribed by an endocrinologist? But let's not take my word for it. Why would we take my word for it? I'm only one person who's coached hundreds or thousands of competitors. Let's look what the research says. Factors predicting normalization of reproductive hormones after cessation of anabolic androgenic steroids in men. A single center retrospective study. And so this was published December 15, 2023, a very recent study. In this study, they actually had a quality sample size, unlike people doing studies with turkesterone, Aduca turkestanica, or lack thereof. This is a proper study. 641 men attended the clinic. 641 men. Of those 641 men, approximately 75% engaged in some form of a PCT. For example, tamoxifen, enclomiphene, or HCG. And so remember, many of these were aided by something to help produce their testosterone again. And so what were the results? Was it close to 90% as was stated by Mike Isreatel? 48.2%. This was approximately taken 36 months following AAS cessation. And so about 3 years after, what was it looking like? 48%, about half were normal. And so do you really think that Mike has a 90% chance of coming off steroids and feeling hunky-dory? No! Or do you think it's closer to 50%? I mean, I presented the evidence, and I'm trying to do this video to warn you. What do you think the underlying message of the video is? Is it to shit on Dr. Mike Isreatel? Or is it to tell you all out there thinking about going on steroids, or perhaps you're already on them, that the odds are not 90% that you find no problem, but because it's closer to 50%. And so think of that. Half of you using steroids probably going to have serious problems when you come off. Half. And so what are the chances that you think that you're just going to use steroids, do whatever cycles, put on 20, 50 pounds of muscle, whatever, and then stop and live your life in bliss? It's 50-50. And to me, those aren't the best of odds. But if you watch Mike's video, hey, my testicles, they haven't shrunk. I don't know how that's possible. Has he actually had them measured? I don't think that Dr. Mike's ball sack is as big now as it was then. There's a big difference between Mike's ball sack now and Mike's ball sack back then.
Big difference between Mike then and Mike now.
When I went to my endocrinologist, they measured my ball sack. They did. And I'd stopped taking steroids for 6 months, and I got repeated blood work. My testosterone levels were below 50 nanograms per deciliter. Doctors looking at me thinking, how do you have any muscle? I'm like, well, I used to take steroids for a long time. I've lost 20 plus pounds of muscle already. But, this is the leftovers. And so he's examining my ball sack and he's saying, oh, well,
it is pretty small.
It's perhaps not as small as some guys are, but it was pretty well down the ladder, showed significant impairment.
Everyone loves to talk about steroids, but no one wants to talk about what it's like to come off of them after abusing them for 15 years. And now your hormones are crashing, your joints hurt, you're miserable, you're tired all the time, and you're getting fatter by the day.
And so if you're on performance-enhancing drugs, you're trying to come off, you're trying to go on HRT, remember, I partnered with Transcend. They'll get your blood work done, qualified medical doctor will go over it, and do their best to help you. What do you need? Do you need HRT? Do you need peptides? What can we do to ensure that you're healthy? And so if you're doing this on your own, you are literally playing Russian roulette with your health. You don't know what's happening. You need to get your blood work done to see if you're healthy, if you're not, the damages that you're doing. And with the qualified doctor at your assistance, you can then decide the best course of action for you. Interested in working with Transcend? Click the link in the description. In this article's conclusion, conclusion, remember, this is a published scientific paper. It's not just Coach Greg talking out of his ass, even though I do think I have the right to do so because I have personal experience doing this and doing consults, coaching people, and so on. Half the consults I was doing back in the day were, I use steroids and now I've stopped, and how do I fix these problems? From erectile difficulty to can't concentrate to losing all their muscle to feeling aches and pains. And so if you think that you can just blast and cruise, never come off, no problem, think twice. Rather than hopping on performance enhancing drugs, and you know what I'm talking about, the various gamut of them, why not stay 100% natural? Why not use the T-Plug stack? We got Turk Max as well as GO2 Max. Increased energy, endurance, strength, going to help you look leaner. And so what more could you ask? You won't fail a drug test. It's 100% legal. And if for some reason it doesn't work, you get a money back guarantee. And on top of that, a $20 gift card. How many companies in the world offer such an amazing guarantee? And so if you're interested in the real deal, a Juga Turkistatica from Uzbekistan, I got you covered. And remember, it's not the copycat plant that you're seeing other companies selling at a lower price. The fake plant. How dare they rip you off on purpose? We've already exposed them. We've already talked about this. We let them know, and they don't care, but I do. Coach Greg, we have the 100% legitimate supplements. And so if you want the top quality supplements, guaranteed, head to my website and enter code Greg for 15% off. In the results, the significant, they said that it does appear that PCTs help people regain testosterone levels better than not doing them. However, there is no exact science to exactly what you should be doing, but that the shorter the duration of your steroid cycle, the better. And so if you've only used steroids for 3 months, it's going to be easier to come back than, for example, if you use steroids for 6 months. If you use steroids for 13 years, it's a pretty long time, especially without a break, your chances of recovery is going to be lower. And so if you're new to the game and you've only been doing steroids for example, several months or a couple of years, your chances are probably higher than 50%. But if you've been doing it for a very long time, it's been years since you've been started, it's not looking good. Subscribe, click the bell button, comment to boost the algorithm. Please like the video if you liked it. Don't forget to watch one of those 2 bloops. And of course, the cookbooks, the Circle Diet book, training books. You can get all my books on my website. Don't forget to head out there. And if you want the free diet and training program, be sure to pick it up. Remember, it's free. Head to the website. And until next time, I am out.